0.16.0 RC5, that is the 5th release candidate, is currently out and looking likely to be the last release candidate, which means that the 0.16 stable release is close and mostly waiting on some final release notes. There's already some exciting PRs for 0.17 starting to line up, but we'll wait until they land to talk about them here. In the meantime, merges to main are in a pre-release stability slowdown, with only the final small bug fixes having made it in the last week before RC5. We still have some amazing showcases this week, including atmospheric shaders, rocket control launches, and the return of Flash. And crates are even starting to release no standard compatible versions, meaning you could potentially start using multiplayer networking on constrained devices. We've only got one PR to mention this week, and that is about Bevy's examples directory. Bevy's examples directory is large, containing approximately 300 examples of well-kept, up-to-date code exploring various features of the engine. In those examples, some are helpers like camera controllers, and others are visualizers. One such directory is the Tools directory, which contains a gamepad viewer and a scene viewer. In 18.828, there was a small change to the scene viewer that allows it to be used on a GLTF file anywhere on your file system. This means that if you have the Bevy Git repo pulled locally, or if you want to copy and paste the code yourself, you can pull a scene in from any GLTF anywhere on your system. And that is what you're seeing here. The race car is from a Kenny's car kit set, and the other is just a GLTF that I just had lying around my system. And that brings us into the showcases. This is a set of conveyors. The systems for belts and machines in this factory game are all working. Items can be produced and transported, and a toon shader with outlines makes up the visuals. And then we've got an early look at a Vampire Survivors-like gameplay experience. There are a number of features already implemented, including enemies, weapons, level counter, level timers, and more. And then we've got a visualizer for Superformula, which is a generalization of the super ellipse. This demo is making use of Bevy, of course, and Bevy Inspector E GUI to tune parameters of these equations. And then we've got a rocket launch. This is an almost finished gameplay prototype of the launch segment for this rocket game. The original footage is a 16x speed time-lapse showing the steering of a heavy lift launcher into a 200-kilometer orbit around an Earth-sized planet, but I've still skipped a little bit of the footage in the middle, so if you want to see it all, definitely go check out the original footage. And while there are atmospheric shaders coming in 0.16, this is not that. This is something else for somebody's personal game. This is a real-time sky and cloud shader setup, which is really looking fantastic. It includes HDR output, which works with Bevy's bloom and HDR passes, atmospheric scattering approximation, ray-marched volumetric clouds with realistic lighting, night stars, the northern lights, a denoiser pass, and it supports Bevy's PBR reflections via probe lights. And we talked about Foxtrot getting a rewrite last week. This is more progress on that rewrite. Foxtrot is an all-in-one Bevy 3D game template for desktop. The changes shown here are already merged into the main branch, so you can take it for a spin if you want to. And this is Dwellers, which is an open-source Dwarf Fortress/Wimworld inspired game that's been in development for about a year. It has a number of game features implemented already and is playable, but generally considered a work in progress as well. And then we've got a Flash animation plugin for Bevy that builds on top of the Swift, that's SWF, parsing library and shaders from the Ruffle project. And here we have a demo of an in-progress Bevy animation graph feature. 2D blend spaces working together with event track-based animation synchronization to blend moving and strafing animations where the foot positions don't match out of the box. And this is NPC Simulator, the first demo for NPC Simulator over on itch, a game where you are a regular NPC. The game currently supports trading, building relations, and gambling, and as I mentioned before, is available to play over on itch. And I'm always excited to see Jarl's UI. I think Jarl's UI is one of the more impressive UIs in the ecosystem at the moment. This is a crafting system UI for Jarl, Jarl being a fantasy colony simulator. The UI here is built with Bevy UI and some custom helpers. And then we've got an update on Drexls tower defense. This is the Harp tower. 3 starting towers are now in place for the tower defense game, including the new Harp tower that stuns enemies. Online multiplayer, as you can see here, is already working. And to build a home, add speech bubbles to the game. The hard data for what's going on here is still shown in the sidebar, so the speech bubbles are just an additional in-world signifier. And then we've got the other factory game this week. This is Splitters and Mergers for an in-development factory game. We've seen this one in previous issues actually already, so it's nice to see the progress. And a lot of people skip things like loading screens and loading animations, but this is the loading and world generation for a new game. It includes a start menu, a loading screen, and once you click on Create World, a world generation sequence. And that brings us into the crate section this week. Starting off with Bevy Shuffle Bag. Bevy Shuffle Bag provides a shuffle bag implementation, which in this case, a shuffle bag means a collection of items that can be endlessly picked in a random, non-repeating order. The shuffle bag struct implements all your favorite Bevy traits like component, resource, asset, and more, so you can use it in almost any way you want to. And then we've got Bevy UI text input. This is a basic Bevy UI text input using Cosmic Text. A number of core text editing basics are implemented, including undo, redo, and cut, copy, and paste, but features like rich text and responsive sizing are not currently. And finally, in the crate section this week, we've got aeronet 0.14 RC1. This is a release candidate of aeronet, an ECS native low-level networking library for Bevy, which is compatible with Bevy Replicon. 0.14 is a super interesting release, bringing no standard and no atomic support, which in turn means full, high-quality, reliable, and ordered messaging and replication on your ESP32 or Game Boy Advance. 0.14 also brings Steam networking socket support. And then we've got a small educational post, or set of posts, if you will. This is a small collection of useful small systems and components in website post form. Currently, there are 2 notes, using a gamepad as a mouse or keyboard, and a joystick area node. And then for our very last entry this week, we've got Lumina 0.2.2. Lumina is a top-down, fast-paced, objective-based PvP game written in Rust using the Bevy game engine. The reason this is in devlogs this week is that this video is a clip of Lumina's developers doing a playtest of 0.2.2. So if you're interested in taking a look at the game, go check out the YouTube video. And as always, all links for everything that we've talked about are on the website, thisweekinbevy.com. We list all the PRs that were merged as well as the issues and PRs that were open. So if you want to contribute, definitely go take a look. And I will see you next week.